Hey everybody, this is the first of possibly many book reviews. I read a lot, so why not do reviews on this channel? And while I'm reviewing, why not open a beverage? Brooklyn's Brown Ale. The book, I'm so prepared. The book is The Calculating Stars, although this is reverse, so that's not going to work, by Mary Robinette Kowal. I'll just put it like that. I purchased this book through Kindle and read it on my phone. I was either challenging myself or torturing myself with the past few books I read and or listened to on audio. 3 books this year that I've read have been in the 1,000-page / 45-hour length, and that's insanely massive. It doesn't matter if every word is gold, you're ready to move on when it's time to end. Once I finished those books, I made one promise to myself. I would read a book of normal length. Now, I've been a fan of science fiction since diving into most of Arthur C. Clarke's Oeuvre? You can't pronounce that word. Why does it exist? My favorite series from Arthur C. Clarke was the Rendezvous with Rama one, in which an alien spaceship travels through our solar system, an international ship meets it, visits for a short amount of time, leaves, and then the ship just leaves the solar system. It became a series many years later. In over 3 books we figure out exactly what's behind these visits. No spoilers here. I digress. Another one of my favorite genres is alternate history. I read the original, or at least the one given credit, alt history book Bring the Jubilee, written in 1955 by Ward Moore. In this book, the South wins the Civil War, and yes, this is the most popular what-if of them all, at least in America. The North barely functions as it still owes the South reparations. A scientist discovers a hidden community, they develop a time machine, and somehow he reverses things at Gettysburg and makes things right. But before we get started on the actual book, let me talk about how awesome the author is. Mary Robinette Kowal is the author of the Lady Astronaut duology, since there already is a sequel for this out, and historical fantasy novels, the Glamorous History series, and the Ghost Talkers. She's a member of the award-winning podcast Writing Excuses and has received the Campbell Award for Best New Writer, 3 Hugo Awards, the RT Review Award for Best Fantasy Novel, and has been a finalist for the Hugo, Nebula, and Locust Awards. Stories have appeared in Strange Horizons, Asimov's several years' best anthologies, and her collections Word Puppets and Scenting the Dark and Other Stories. As a professional puppeteer and voice actor, Mary has performed for Lazy Town, the Center of Puppetry Arts, Jim Henson Pictures, and founded Other Hand Productions. Her designs have garnered 2 UNIMA USA Citations of Excellence, the highest award an American puppeteer can achieve. She records fictions for authors such as Cage Baker, Cory Doctorow, and John Scalzi. I can really read good tonight, and I just ain't had a sip yet. Mary lives in Chicago with her husband Rob and over a dozen manual typewriters. Now, the idea behind alt history is you make one change to something that happened in history and then you go. What if instead of having a waffle and bacon for breakfast, I had a frittata? Wait, just got a really bad idea for a novel. The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal is alt history and science fiction rolled into one. It doesn't quite play by the rules, though. The alternate history is that in 1952, a meteorite hits the Atlantic near Washington, D.C., demolishing the city plus a lot of the East Coast. In this version of reality, Dewey really does beat Truman, the author explains, because he was willing to speed up the space program, because in this version of history, right before the meteor, the U.S. launches the first satellites into space. So we seem like we're like a decade ahead in this book. The first couple of this novel are Nathaniel and Elma York. We begin with them in a vacation home in the Poconos, as both are involved in the space program but need a quiet respite. They witness the meteor attack, somehow make it to where Elma keeps her plane, because she flies planes. She was involved in the World War II. The women had the option to be pilots at the end. I actually should look this up, see if this actually happened. She flies. She also is a computer, the name for the women who did all the manual calculations for the space program. See the movie Hidden Figures or read the book based on it. Computers in this version of history become even more important in this timeline. The country is devastated by the attack, and even though her entire family, save a brother, die due to either being in DC or Charleston, Elma does calculations to show that the resulting environment is going to be inhospitable to humans within a century. In books, TV, and movies, you have to get past some hurdles. Mine is that in a very slightly different 1950s, politicians listen to scientists and ramp up the space program. The idea is, and what a weird idea, totally couldn't work here, that humanity puts its egg in more than one basket by attempting to colonize space, and therefore start the space program earlier, put more money into it, and NASA becomes like an international thing. Nathaniel is the lead engineer, and Elma is the computer, but as the program progresses, she leads a push to get female astronauts, seeing as women and men both would be needed to continue the species in space colonies. She gets pushed back by the first man in space, well-named Stetson Parker, but eventually women do join the fray. In this book, we get to deal with a slightly different push for civil rights. It's clear that the initial batch of astronauts, while international, do not include people of color. Mental illness, Elma deals with stress by taking a pill called Milton and has to decide whether to come clean to her husband and employer, and even detours into terrorism for a moment when one launch is suspended due to a person with a bomb trying to stop it. Some of these threads disappear as I wanted to see a little more about a pushback to an expanded space program from America dealing with a major attack, or a major meteor attack. Books like these just have to keep plenty of balls in the air. There are a few near misses, but no major disasters like in our timeline of space travel. The stakes don't quite get as high as they could, and problems get resolved for the most part with almost all of the characters getting what they want and growing in the process. This book is a part of a series, and the second book promises to take us to Mars. In the end of this book, the moon is on the horizon before the end of the 1950s. Just imagine an alternate history if we kept up our space program in the same way. We'll give this book 4 out of 5 barrel-aged stouts. So at the end, I wanted to throw in just a little behind the podcasts. How even micro-podcasts make you a narcissist. We all have special sensitivities, things that affect us more than we think they should, but they do. For me, it's when I listen to podcasts and they joke about small audiences when those small audiences they joke about are an order of magnitude higher than mine. I'm not quite in the upside down world, but I'm on the side, not quite fully putting my weight behind promotion because I talk about a sensitive subject. If you want special sensitivity, talk to people about their imaginary friend. You get expectations like when I had a guest on who had 70,000 subscribers and you think your interview is going to get more attention than most. You are correct when the chat room is a mass of super fans, super haters, your poor 2 friends who always show up and are just admiring the view, plus 2 Christian apologists. That was interesting. Not good for any ADD type tendencies. Then you go to Podbean, check out the stats for the downloads, and it's 1 fewer than the previous week with a very good journalist, but not a name in the atheist community. You pout. Then 2 out of the next 3 days you get 100 plus downloads a day without any rhyme or reason, and 2 of the most downloaded episodes are from 2015. So, I keep overchecking the stats, and the problem is you, and the problem is me. Get ready. Cognitive Dissonance is coming up on Thursday, and I am going to be on Beyond the Trailer Park in about 20 minutes, so I need to eat some fucking dinner. Hope this was enjoyable. We'll see if I do this ever again.